This week in Knoxville, a 20 years long tradition benefiting war veterans is happening for the last time. Since 2007, the nonprofit HonorAir Knoxville has given veterans an opportunity to fly to the nation's capital and visit memorials that were built in their honor. In the coming days on WBIR, we are going to feature interviews with HonorAir flight staff, plus one of the state representatives who created the program, and some veterans who are taking Knoxville's last HonorAir flight. Here's a look.
You were a helicopter pilot.
That's correct.
And I want to ask you, this is the last flight for HonorAir. What does it mean for you to fly on the last HonorAir Knoxville flight?
Well, it means quite a bit. To put it all into perspective for you and the listeners, I enlisted. So what really makes it really sickening almost, we had a president, Jimmy Carter at the time, and he pardoned all the draft dodgers and the deserters. Those folks came back to the United States with, open arms. Parties, parades, where the folks the draftee that went over to Vietnam, they almost had to sneak back into the country.
Veteran was talking to our 10 News anchor, John Becker, who is going on tomorrow's HonorAir flight. And he also joins us now. John, thanks so much for joining us to talk about this. I mean, I know that you've been on several, we've covered this, but for people who may not know, can you explain this flight?
Absolutely. These are flights meant to take veterans to see memorials built in their honor. And this started, Shay, as you know, almost 20 years ago, taking a plane load of World War II veterans up to Washington, D.C. And in that trip, it was really designed to see the World War II Veterans Memorial because that was built so many years after World War II ended. A lot of them wouldn't have had a chance to see it. So let's give them an all-expenses-paid trip to the nation's capital, and we'll see other memorials, but the focus will be the World War II Memorial. Since then, they have escorted more than 4,600 veterans to the nation's capital over, as we mentioned, almost 20 years, and this is flight 38 on Wednesday.
And I'm sure that you've been there several times whenever these veterans see, that memorial for them or their names. What were some of their reactions?
One of the greatest moments I've ever had was on the first flight I took, which was a rainy day. It was a really difficult day. But little did I know that Eddie Manis and two families had set up this reunion with two veterans from World War II, and they hadn't seen each other since the war ended. Cyril J. Payne was a tank commander in World War II and is from the Knoxville area. And then one of his buddies back in the war was from Virginia, and the two families talked, and I was there to witness the first time they reconnected in 75 years since the war ended, and it happened on the steps of the World War II Memorial.
And this trip, John, obviously a great experience, an opportunity for these veterans, but what is the feeling? Is it more somber because a lot of them lost brothers and sisters in the war, or is it more happy because they're going to see memorials that are for them? I guess it could also be a mix.
It's both. It absolutely is both. I was the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, for people who haven't seen it, has the names of more than 58,000 troops who were killed in that war, and it is a powerfully somber place because you see the names of the dead right there on the wall, and a lot of times people are doing rubbings of those names, so it's often very quiet around that memorial, and so that takes a somber tone. And I was there one time when a veteran who had been there a half a dozen times didn't have the courage to go up to the wall, and on the day I was there, two of his buddies flanked him and pulled him up to the wall so he could touch it for the first time.
Wow, that's amazing. And you as a journalist and witnessing these things, how does it make you feel? What are your feelings on it?
It's extraordinary. These are truly the 1% of the people in our country. Fewer than 1% of our nation serves in the military. And so this is such a way to show how much we appreciate that service and that sacrifice. It was one of the beginnings of this happened as our series was getting started. And it dovetails, I think, really well because Eddie Manis, who's the founder and CEO, chairman of HonorAir Knoxville, really wanted to give veterans a special moment and say thank you. And that's what I think our series tries to do, is give people a sense of their life experience in a way, thanking them by sharing their story.
And you've shared a lot of stories, gone on several HonorAir flights. Why is Service in Sacrifice? Why is that series so important to you? How did you come up with the idea?
I came up with it three ways. My grandfather served in World War II, and he'd always been an inspiration, and so he was part of it. The second thing was I embedded with National Guard troops in Iraq in 2004 and saw all of the tasks and duties we asked of them in that country, and that so impressed me. And then three, when the memorial went up in downtown Knoxville that has the names of more than 6,000 East Tennesseans who've been killed since World War I saw the names on that memorial and I thought, wonder what all the stories are behind those names. And then I thought, what about sharing the names of people who are living and sharing their stories? And that was really the three inspirations that birthed this series.
And I know you mentioned a couple of instances already, but are there any veterans or other stories or instances that just really stick out to you?
Well, so many. We've had a chance to go all over the world with some veterans. I flew to Vietnam with 24 Vietnam veterans, and for many it was the first time back in 50 years since the war ended, and seeing them have a healing experience together and seeing this country 50 years after war and what it looked like now was a really stunning experience in my journalism career. And then also in 2014, we followed two East Tennessee veterans back to the 70th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. One of those veterans was on Omaha Beach in the third wave. They called it Bloody Omaha because we lost so many on the opening hours of that fight in World War II. He lost part of his hand and didn't even make it into France. He got shipped off on a medical ship, and he went back for the first time. And then the second person that we followed, Clinton Riddle, was on a glider and crash landed behind enemy lines and ended up being credited his unit with more than 400 days under fire. So he had extraordinary stories, and we returned to the same field where his glider crash landed 70 years later. So those were experiences that really stand out.
And you mentioned several years ago being an embedded. Does that, I guess, give you a new lens into going and covering these HonorAir flights, because you've seen how it is in war zones? That is something that a lot of people, might see the HonorAir flights on TV or the homecomings, but to really see potentially what these men and women went through.
I feel like it is. It was a great snapshot for me as a journalist. I wasn't there long, only about a week in Iraq in 2004. So not just a minuscule amount of time, but in that time, it was so impactful for me to see what they were experiencing. And I remember being so nervous that I lost weight, even though I was eating nonstop over there. They fed us like kings. But it was you're at this heightened sense of alert, and I got appreciation for that going out with various troops on their combat missions at night and during the day. So it definitely opened my eyes, and I feel like was a good window into what we see, Shay. I know you've done ride-alongs with state troopers or local police officers or deputies. You get a sense, even spending a few hours with them, about what their day's like. And so I felt grateful I could do that.
And obviously, these stories impact veterans and, the men and women you talk to. But can you talk about how these stories also impact the community? I mean, you mentioned the coming home. How does that impact the community?
It's so extraordinary to be in that moment where these people who, many of them, when they return from Vietnam especially, would land on the West Coast, and their commanders would say, we need you to take your uniform off in the bathroom and throw it away and walk out pretending like you are not a part of the military. And that was their homecoming. And now it's a chance for our community to say, welcome home. those two words mean so much. So it draws the community together. It doesn't matter your political stripe, your race, ethnicity, religious background. It's just about saying thank you to these people who put their lives on the line for all of us. And so that is really special. It's beautiful here in Knoxville. One of the coolest things that happens on HonorAir is when they land initially in Washington, D.C., and it happens spontaneously in the airport when they're getting off the plane, and you see other travelers realize what's going on, and immediately they take their hats off. They shake their hands. They give them hugs. They start clapping. It is really, it's so genuine.
I'm sure it's emotional
It
too.
is. It is really emotional.
Do you, and I know you can't necessarily speak for these veterans, but do you feel like, that honor just landing at the airport and people taking off their hats and saluting them, and then also the coming home, do you feel like that brings them a sense of peace and closure that maybe they didn't get whenever they came back home after serving in Vietnam specifically?
For some of them, absolutely. Absolutely. Eddie Manners would tell you this. He's had so many veterans come up to him and say, this meant more to me than most anything in my life. And to hear that from somebody near the end of their life is so, I hope, gratifying for him, because he's given so much as his volunteer team to make this happen. He will say time and time again, there's no way he could pull this off without the dedicated volunteers that he's had for 38 flights now. And yes, these veterans often say this is what they needed for some more closure in their life.
And a question that I asked you, and I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, why stop?
Yeah.
Why is it the last one?
It is. And really, this nonprofit can say mission accomplished, because they set out originally to take World War II veterans up to see the nation's capital and the memorials built in their honor. And that memorial we started talking about, specifically the World War II memorial. And then they expanded over the years to include veterans of Vietnam and veterans of Korea. And they've had a female veteran flight. And so they've really done what they set out to do. And I think that the time just feels right now to say, this is it.
Yeah. Before I let you go, JB, I want to loop back to that veteran you spoke to, because he has an amazing story of survival.
He does. This is a helicopter pilot in Vietnam who crashed not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times. And on his opening day in Vietnam, he had a little training flight. And just as we were about to leave, he explained what happened on that training flight. Here it is.
It's a bullet from an AK-47 that I received on my first day in country on the orientation ride. The only thing that stopped me from getting it right there was a cable that's about that big around, an armor cable.
That is, I'm speechless. That is, I don't know what you would call that. Luck, destiny, fate to have your life saved by a cable.
A cable. And that is, it's sort of the definition of war that we've heard from talking with people who've been in it, and that is the randomness of war. Sometimes it's a cable that can save your life. Sometimes the most highly trained warrior dies in a car wreck on the way to battle. It's that kind of randomness that's really just head shaking.
Well, JB, thanks for stopping by. Best of luck tomorrow. I'm definitely looking forward to those stories, as I'm sure a lot of people are, but we will have so much more on 10 News regarding the veterans and also the volunteers and people who are there on that HonorAir flight and how it's benefiting them.